What is going on, everybody? John Impemba here with Howard Bender. Welcome into the Fantasy Alarm NFL DFS show. It is week 6, Howard. We are already a third of the way through the NFL regular season, my friend. How are we doing?
I'm doing great, man. I've been having a good week. It's been a lot of diving into week 6. I'm probably sick and tired of talking about the Minnesota wide receivers, the Arizona backfield, and whether or not Jeff Wilson is going to inhibit the production of Raheem Mostert. But I think I'm ready to go.
Yeah, listen, a lot of talk about, a lot of news coming down just before we're even starting to record the show today. We know that now there's not going to be any Miles Sanders this week. Chuba Hubbard is going to be the starting running back for Carolina in their matchup. He's expected to get a lot of the workload. Here we know already that Deshaun Watson is not going to be playing this weekend. We're going to have the PJ Walker experience once again here for Cleveland after DTR did not do too well 2 weeks prior. So be some interesting movement. Of course, this last week we also got hammered with all the injuries. Justin Jefferson went on IR. James Conner went on IR. Anthony Richardson went on IR. There's one more that I'm missing there too. Another player of note went down with injuries here. So we're going to be talking about some replacement players, the value of those replacement players, and how we find that value fitting into our DFS lineups. Khalil Herbert was the other one that went down, and the DFS lineups and how we can go ahead and build about some different matchups and take advantage of some things here. The other thing I think is worth noting is we got a couple of games here, or at least one game here with some weather to note. Apparently, Minnesota-Chicago's got the little rain symbol. I know there's some wind. We had to deal with some wind last night in the Thursday night football game. So a lot's going to go into this week here, Howard.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to think about. Yeah, I've been looking at that San Francisco-Cleveland game. The rain was actually predicted for Saturday, but apparently it's been pushed off. And so what we're dealing with is some rain, some slick field, possibly even some heavier winds in there. That game total it popped to me because the game total was like 37.5. And I think it's down to 36.5 right now. So I was like, well, damn. I know PJ Walker's under center, but I guess they're really planning on either Cleveland not scoring any points against this San Francisco defense, or maybe San Francisco could have a little bit of trouble going up against this Cleveland defense, which has been very, very strong.
Yeah, I agree with you there 100%. So it'll be interesting to see. I think Cleveland, they've been playing really well at home. They're coming off the bye, so they've had time to obviously prepare. But, we just saw San Francisco tear apart Dallas last week. So it'll be interesting to see the direction some rostership goes this week. Let's just get into it because we have a lot to talk about today. We'll start off at the quarterback position here, breaking it all down. Top price quarterback on the slate, Jalen Hurts up over 8K against the Jets. Tua's at home against Carolina in a game that is a 14.5 game total at last checked. Justin Fields is coming off back-to-back 30 fantasy point outings after that horrendous defensive display by Washington last week. And then Cousins up over 7K, but losing his number one wide receiver going against Chicago. So if we're looking at these top 4 QBs, Howard, you did the watch list already. I did the quarterback coach. When breaking down this week's slate, where did you find yourself gravitating towards the quarterback position?
It's kind of funny when I started looking at the slate on the whole here, and I'm trying to pull up my DraftKings is working real slowly right now, but nevertheless, let me play around. Nope, that's the wrong one. Here we go, Johnny. Now I'm ready for you.
I'm ready for you, Howard.
Are you? All right. So Hurts against the Jets, obviously that's a good one there. Tua for me is I think I like Tua more as a GPP play, because we know that you run on Carolina. But one of the things that we've noticed here also is that because of the ineptitude of that Carolina offense, a lot of 3-and-outs, a lot of turnovers, a lot of short fields, it puts the defense at a real loss. And we saw Carolina really just get burned by Detroit last week, because of that. And so Jared Goff had himself a great game. Now, does Carolina fix those problems? I don't know, but it's a high potent offense there for Miami. So for Tua, I look to him as like a GPP tournament option. I think this Fields Cousins matchup here, This is probably where a lot of people are going to go for their cash game quarterbacks. But I actually, John, I think I might pay down a little bit even further. And I might be looking more in like the Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford kind of a range.
Yeah, listen, I'm in a full agreement with you here. Obviously, I've had some exposure to Fields because it's hard to ignore back-to-back 30 fantasy point production, 8 passing touchdowns the last 2 weeks, as though they were definitely aided against Washington, and they just kept on jumping these routes to DJ Moore and just missing miserably, and Moore was able to take advantage of that. I do find that Fields can have some success, and he's actually played better at home this year then on the road. We know that Minnesota defense just struggles no matter what.
All right, let me hit you with this then.
Me.
Why? Wait, listen. Fields and Moore have been phenomenal for the last 2 weeks. Everybody's all in on Chicago, and it's like, yeah, these guys are great. These guys are bumping, and you know, they finally got it. Luke Getsy is letting Justin Fields be Justin Fields, and they're at home. Minnesota, we know their defense is sus. We know that they just lost their best weapon in Justin Jefferson. Why are the Minnesota Vikings favored by 3 on the road in this game?
I think it's perception of talent on the offensive side of the football for Minnesota. I think they look at 2 bad defenses and think that ultimately you'll see Cousins with Hawkinson and Addison and maybe even Madison and that crew likely just outscore Chicago here. I think that's probably the reason they're getting the nod over Chicago in these spots here. That'd be my one guess. So we've talked a lot about Minnesota the last couple of years, or especially last year, really being a pretender. They were 14-2, but they were like, they were road dogs at one point to the Lions when they had that huge record advantage over them last season. Now, listen, I agree. I think there's certainly some suspect sides. I think it's gonna be a high scoring game. You know, with Fields, you know, we're waiting for really the big rushing day. It hasn't come yet. Moore's obviously had the big day, and then Cole Kmet a couple of weeks ago had the big production. Darnell Mooney really has kind of been non-existent. So, you know, I think we could see Fields again either lean on his top 2 targets here, or maybe get a little bit more mobility of them. But to your point, dropping down into the mid-tiers, kind of where I've lived as well, the cover of this week's quarterback coach is Matthew Stafford. Joe Burrow last week against Arizona went for 303 scores. Now you have Matthew Stafford with Cooper Kupp, who looked tremendous last week in his debut, and Puka Nacua looked as good, and Tutu Atwell looked as good. Now you have this passing offense at home against Arizona. At $6,100, Matthew Stafford was my number 1 DFS quarterback of the week.
Yeah, I love Stafford. I was in on Stafford last week as well. I thought that he was in a great spot. And you look at these receiving weapons and what he's got, because not only does he have Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Tutu Atwell, but throw in Tyler Higbee running around out there. Throw in the fact that Kyron Williams is a great pass-catching running back. And there's a lot here, you know, for Stafford to be able to work with. And so, yeah, in this matchup against a soft Arizona defense, yeah, I think this game pops. I really do. You know, because the Rams defense it's not good.
It's not
great. Really not good. Now, I'm not going to say that, you know, Josh Dobbs was the be-all, end-all, because Dobbs didn't really pop for me last week like I wanted him to. Maybe that was because James Conner got hurt and they were kind of figuring out, like, all of a sudden, the defense was kind of pulling back into coverage a little bit more because they weren't so worried about Amari DiMercado or anything like that. I'm not really sure, but you know, I do think that there is enough talent on this Arizona team, because you got Marquise Brown, you've got Zach Ertz, you've got you know, for love him or hate him, Rondell Moore. There's still guys who are there. Michael Wilson, who could be problematic for the Rams. So I think this game pops. I also think that the Cincinnati-Seattle game, I don't know why that game is sitting. Maybe there's some rain in the forecast for, I don't know, Cincinnati because it's Ohio. I don't even know. But like, how is that game like sitting with a 45 over under? For me, I look at that one as a very strong opportunity as well for Geno Smith and Joe Burrow to just be like, bing, 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 you know, like heavyweight fighters.
Yeah, I think a little bit has come with the Seattle offense. I think it's kind of underwhelmed to the start of this year. And we've also talked about it, Howard. The scoring overall this year has been down. So a 45 game total is actually, you know, kind of high for what we've seen around the league this year. Cincinnati's obviously had their struggles. Last week was not the case. Obviously, Burrow had a much better performance against Arizona. I agree with you. I do like the Seattle side of this game, and Burrow coming off of that good game. If that calf is healthy, Jamar Chase seems uncoverable. You'll hope to see he gets T. Higgins back. But if not, Tyler Boyd servicely continues to provide a service. But what I do find is interesting in that one game, and I know we're talking quarterbacks, but maybe it plays a little bit to this game in general, that Joe Mixon currently is our highest projected running back in terms of ownership this week, Howard.
So my feeling about this, because I agree with you, I do think that, when I saw Mixon as the at the top of the heap also. Now, granted, this is, we're talking here on Friday morning, right, and we're still going to wait and see what happens. But, building GPP lineups for me for this game is, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase on one side with Kenneth Walker coming back, Geno Smith and like Tyler Lockett with Joe Mixon coming back,
right?
Or game stack this sucker.
Right.
I think that's a possibility for you as well.
Yeah, both or Mixon at the very least catches the football. Walker not as much, but no, I agree with you. But I'm curious if that's going to end up impacting the way some of these roster builds go, because it's not often you'll see a running back at 25, 26%, and then like the wide receivers or quarterback being equally as high, unless it's one of those 55 game total games here. So something to at least watch out for there. When we go down into some more value, the obvious play this week by many is going to be Gardner Minshew starting. No Anthony Richardson here. Is $5,000 going against Jacksonville. I've tried to ask a couple of different people their thoughts on this one. And Jacksonville spent the last 2+ weeks over in London. Now they're coming back and they're immediately playing another game, this time back in the States at home. Do you think there's going to be any sort of time zone difference? I kind of likened it to my experience being away for 2 weeks in Europe and then coming home, and I woke up every day at like 4:30 a.m. because like my whole time zone equilibrium was being thrown off, and I found myself getting like tired or late in the day. I mean, I don't know. Is that just like a real experience you think some of these Jacksonville players could be dealing with?
Well, funny you ask that, John, because I actually asked that very same question to Jim Bowden and asked him about, travel for teams back and forth. And, obviously, he was able to cite things more on the lines of like, flying from the East Coast to the West Coast or vice versa. But this is what he said. He was like, the first week, like for Buffalo this week, could be problematic, right? They flew over late in the week last week. They were probably still, dealing with jet lag. Then they got smacked around here by Jacksonville, and then they left and they flew back. And now they're trying to get back into the swing of things. He said for Jacksonville, it was a little bit different of a story here, because also when you're a team like, let's say the Bills, and you're doing that 1 week over there, a lot of the guys bring their families. And when they bring their families over there, then, they're doing some sightseeing with them, or they're meeting them for dinner and stuff like that. And they're, whatever it is that they're doing. He said for Jacksonville, if they brought their families over, it was for the first week, right? And then, did their sightseeing, did whatever, blah, blah, blah. But then families go back to the U.S. The team stays there. The team goes through, and establishes their own routine, right? And they're not out and about, and they're not worrying about doing anything else. And then they come back. He says it's a little easier if you don't have like all of that added stuff of like trying to jam it all into 1 week while you're there, that they were able to spread it out. So he's more down on Buffalo coming home than he is about Jacksonville coming home.
Okay. Yeah, for me, I was just wondering if it would be more difficult for them to assimilate to the time after spending 2 weeks in such a drastic time zone difference versus going for the weekend, and then coming back. So, anyways, guys, Gardner Minshew here at 5K.
It's only a 6-hour difference. I mean, come on, let's not. I mean, I've been to Europe, right? And I've come back, and it's, at most for me, it's been a day.
I'm telling you, for my personal experience, I woke up for over a week at like 4:00 in the morning, just like the way the time zone change was. So, anyways,
maybe you're just softer. Maybe you're just soft, John.
Could be. Anyways, powered through it. Got up for work early. Got things done. Minshew's 5K against Jacksonville. We're obviously in here, right?
You are, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you can do it for a GPP tournament. I'm not going to sit here and hype up the Gardner Minshew revenge game narrative or talk about his mustache or his jean shorts or anything like that. He's not a great quarterback. Can he be serviceable? Absolutely. But when I'm looking at the Colts, and we'll talk about this when we hit the wide receivers, I think it's more about Josh Downs for me than it is about Gardner Minshew.
Sure. Okay. Anything in on Garoppolo this week going up against New England?
I saw you had him as a sleeper there. I mean, listen, this is, it's a terrible defense now, losing Judon, losing Christian Gonzalez. Josh McDaniels knows the ins and outs of what Belichick likes to do. Jimmy Garoppolo comes from over there. You got the Jacoby Myers revenge game narrative. Yeah, there's a little love for Jimmy Graves. But again, do we see him as being like a 300 yard, 3 touchdown guy at all?
No, I mean, I don't think he has to be that to pay off the price tag, obviously. But, for me, I look at more so the Patriots offense ineptitudes lately and how that has set up opposing offenses just to be successful scoring the football. Mac Jones is turning the ball over all the time. They're fumbling. They're going 3 and out, short fields for offenses. And it just could potentially increase the opportunity for scoring here. And I do think that there's going to be some motivation. And while, the counter argument to that is, well, Bill Belichick's going to know everything Josh McDaniels is going to do. You need the personnel to do it. J.C. Jackson was so bad. I don't think adding him all of a sudden is changing anything. Wasn't really the case last week. Jonathan Jones coming back didn't look great. I mean, so, has Garoppolo looked good in Las Vegas? No, he's got 7 interceptions in 4 games. But, I do think that there could be something in the works here for that little extra motivation. So I don't mind Jimmy G as a dart throw. Anybody else for you, Howard?
No, sir. I think I'm pretty good as far as the QBs go. I know the general range in which I'm living, and I feel pretty confident with that. I don't need to maneuver around. I mean, we haven't said anything about Geno Smith, but I will. Because this Cincinnati defense is terrible. Their secondary is not strong. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. Cincinnati's the worst against they're horrible. They're second worst against the run. Yeah. And then, so I love Kenneth Walker, but then they're horrible against the tight end. Now, I don't know if you want to throw a dart at Noah Fant or you want to throw a dart at Cody Parkinson.
Yeah, probably not.
But there are enough weapons there in Seattle to let me look and see what Geno Smith is capable of doing, especially if this game turns into a shootout.
Yeah. And I'll say one more thing. Coop is pretty high on the Buccaneers wide receivers this week. Tampa Bay's at home against Detroit. Tampa Bay coming off the bye. Baker has been
don't do it.
Usable. He's been usable this year.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Dude. You're talking about the guy who's still clinging on to Dalton Kincaid.
Well, yes, he is.
And Mike Evans didn't even practice. We don't even think Mike Evans is going to play this week.
No, I think, didn't they say Mike Evans got a full practice in today?
I don't know. I didn't see the latest update.
Let me see. I thought I saw that update. Let's check real quick. Mike Evans was a full go as of an hour ago and will be a full go Sunday.
So. All right. Well, there you go. Go ahead. Stack up those bucks.
Stack up the bucks. Running backs here. McCaffrey is $9,500 against Cleveland. Feels a little tough to spend, but it is Christian McCaffrey. The obvious chalk here is Raheem Mostert at $6,400. With especially whether or not Wilson comes back or not, I still think Mostert dominates the touches here. Wilson's first game back, if he is active, I can't imagine they get a big timeshare. Then we mentioned Mixon's currently our highest roster running back at $6,300. So I'll live under the 7K range. Kamara against Houston. I like Kenneth Walker. I like Raheem Mostert. I like Joe Mixon. All those guys for me are very much in play.
Yeah, I don't feel the need to spend up for McCaffrey. Again, it's a super low total. So we're really interested to see what happens there. I don't feel the need to pay up for Monty, on the road against Tampa. I love me some Bijan, but I think the Falcons are still searching for an identity. Yes, Bijan gets a strong workload, but all this nonsense about trying to turn Desmond Ridder into a passer, That grosses me out. I know Vreeland likes ETN.
Yeah.
And I don't hate that
Jaguars fan, though. So
what's that?
He's a Jags fan, though,
He is a Jags fan, but I don't hate the ETN play, and I don't hate Jacobs at 7,000. But again, I agree with you. Where we like to live, Kenneth Walker 6,700, Alvin Kamara 6,800, Mostert at 64, Mixon at 63. I think that's the place to be. You could go Kyron Williams, although I'll say this: I think that based on what we know about Sean McVay, I think they just love to throw over there. They just love to throw.
You have a healthy Matt Stafford. Kyron Williams hasn't been very efficient. He's just been successful based off volume. And I don't think this is going to be, well, I'll say this. If the Rams play the way we think they play, they could go up on this team 2 touchdowns, and then you get a Kyron Williams closeout game, right? Maybe he builds up some yards there. So not like a core running back play, but if you wanted to be a little different because people are playing Cousins and they are playing this, or not Cousins, Stafford, but they are playing this passing offense, Kyron's going to get a little bit of less love there.
Well, that's the move that you make. And I don't know if a lot of people know this. When you're sitting there and you're like developing your narratives for games, right? Like for a cash game play, everybody's going to be on Raheem Mostert, and everybody's going to be on the Rams passing game, right? And everybody's big on Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase right now. So what you do for your GPP tournaments is you go the other way. So suddenly Tua and Tyreek with Kyron Williams as your running back, that's the opposite of what the cash game people are doing.
Right.
And that's the move that you make, because when you think everybody's going to be all in on the team's passing game, take their running back and just go against the grain.
Sure. How worried are you on the Cam Akers train? Because I was talking about Alexander Madison again on Wednesday. Coop says he doesn't like the drop that he had that turned into the interception, and then the pass fumbling problems. I haven't seen anything from Cam Akers that makes me think he's just going to leap Alexander Madison. He had 20 for 93 and 17 for 95 against Carolina before that game against Kansas City. Chicago's run defense is terrible. Madison's $5,600. No Justin Jefferson. Maybe they run the ball a little bit more here. I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
No, unfortunately, that's not Kevin O'Connell or Wes Phillips' MO. And I think that they're going to continue to pass the ball, and they're going to be like, see, we don't need Justin Jefferson here because KJ Osborne and Jordan Addison can do just as good a job. I like, I'll use Madison maybe as a GPP throw and see what I can do there. But I'm not going to rely on a situation like you see with Minnesota. It's a pass-heavy scheme. You've got a running back who is dealing with the drops, who has had fumble issues. And so they bring in Cam Akers to, whether it's to light a fire under his ass or to, kind of help spell him. When it comes to a DFS lineup, there's too many question marks about that situation for me to really want to buy in. If I'm a multi-lineup person, if I'm doing 20 lineups, if I'm max entering the Millie Maker, will I have a share or two of Madison because it's such a soft matchup against Chicago? Absolutely. Absolutely. And maybe that is the play with the Minnesota Vikings being favored by 3. Maybe they think Minnesota goes up and they try to run the ball a little heavier in the second half. But then even if that's the case, why wouldn't you split the work between Akers and Madison if these guys, if all you're looking to do is run the ball and chew the clock?
Yeah, I just haven't. I mean, again, he is in the conversations that we had on the Quick Out Fantasy Show. He's sort of projecting that eventually Cam Akers maybe gets a larger share. It just hasn't been the case yet, right? He played 29% of the snaps last week. He played 29% of the snaps the week before that. It's still a pretty dominated snap share by Madison in this offense. He's in the contrarian corner video that I got coming out here this week. So I am a little bit bullish on Alexander Madison this week. I just think that there's a good opportunity for him to maybe get that volume that we saw the 2 previous weeks here when they weren't forced just to play from behind against Kansas City all game. I didn't really care for much of the rest of the mid-tier, though.
No.
Not in love with it, Howard.
I'm not in love with it either, and I got to be honest with you. I'm not really that in love with the pay downs either.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the news we just came out was Chuba Hubbard. Chuba is $4,300. He's going to start against Miami. He can catch the football a little bit, so like that probably when we get these updated rostership numbers for tomorrow, I would imagine we see a little bit of a spike now on Chuba here, but he's been given the opportunity to be the guy before and just sucks. So maybe this just becomes a spot where Miami's up so much and he gets a lot of soft prevent defenses to just gain some garbage time yards against. But
yeah, that's
I don't know, man. $4,300 for Chuba Hubbard.
Hey, man, I'd go to the zoo and watch monkeys throw poop at each other for less than
that. Would you rather play him or Donta Foreman this week?
I'm not. You know what? No interest in DFS.
Okay.
No, I mean, again, dart throws. I'm not a 20 to 50, 150 multi-lineup guy. I'm thinking more on the lines of I want to build a zero-fat cash game lineup that is also potentially going to pop into the GPP world as well. Mm-hmm. So, again, we don't know if Roschon Johnson is back or if he's going to clear concussion protocol in time. And if he does, how much of that workload is he going to pull away from Donta Foreman? Just because it's a nice matchup there against the Minnesota Vikings doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to run this dude hard enough that he's going to be a worthwhile DFS.
If there's no Roschon, though, it's him and Darrington Evans. You got to think that there's going to be some volume for Donta Foreman. So.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But, you're also dealing with a running quarterback and a team that is at home and an underdog, which means that they could end up being caught playing from behind for a significant amount of time.
100%. Move on over to wide receivers here.
Yeah.
The fun position here, Howard. Tyreek Hill is $9,300 against Carolina. We've talked a little bit about that. They wasted zero time giving us Cooper Kupp at $9K because he is worth $9,000. Jamar Chase is $83,000. Puka Nacua is up to $8,000 here. We like Stafford. Obviously, we're going to find ways to get in Kupp or Puka. If you had to pick one, would you rather the Puka at $8K or Kupp at $9K?
You know what? In all honesty, I'd probably just rather go with Kupp at $9K. I think that this first game was like, welcome back, Cooper Kupp. You are the target leader on this team. We know that this offense runs through you. And while, yes, it's nice to have Puka, and we're going to do that, I don't necessarily know if there's going to be a one target differential between them, each game moving forward. I think that Stafford will continue to lock onto Kupp as much as he has. Puka's a great play. There's nothing wrong with him. But if you're asking me, do I want Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua, I'll pay the extra $1,000 for Cooper Kupp.
Is this a Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce reincarnation here? Like, what do we got?
I love making the references to the greatest show on turf because I think that this is probably the Rams' best offense since those times.
I mean, listen, they obviously won the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, and whatnot. But I mean, geez, Puka Nacua was not even a thought on anybody's brain, going into the year for the most part. And now he's one of the best wide receivers in football. So crazy to see. Great matchup for both here. I'm going to find ways to get exposure. What I struggle with, Howard, and let me know if you tend to do this or not. If you're stacking this game, would you play both Kupp and Nacua? Like, I feel like double spending up that much money on these two guys kind of takes away some of the value because they can't both score touchdowns, and to pay off a high price tag like this, you kind of need them to find the end zone. Now, they both could score a touchdown and then they pay it off. That's fine, but they can't both score. I'd rather play Kupp and Chase or Nacua and Chase or something like that, then play a Stafford with Kupp and Nacua.
Agreed on all fronts. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Moving down below the 8K range here, Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to get Sauce Gardner. So as great as he has been, AJ Brown is getting Sauce Gardner. So as great as he has been, I feel like that's kind of a little bit of a tough matchup for me to want to trust him. You have St. Brown coming back after missing last week at 77. Devonta Smith is not going to get Sauce Gardner, so he's $7K. Where are we going below the 8K range for you, Howard?
Yeah, Devonta Smith is definitely the way to go for that aspect. I think he's going to have himself a hell of a day here. I know that you just said that Coop was looking at Mike Evans and or Chris Godwin. If I had to pick one of those, and the fact that it's only a $200 differential, I'll take Evans over Godwin because that's what we've seen right now.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen Baker Mayfield lock into Mike Evans. Everybody, including myself in the preseason, was wrong. We thought that Baker Mayfield, they'd shorten up the passing game and that he would be living off of Chris Godwin. Not the case at all. So Evans, Smith, I told you I like Lockett a little bit more than I like Metcalf. I do like Metcalf, but I like Lockett a little bit more. I don't mind Ridley because this Indianapolis secondary is absolutely putrid.
Yeah.
Right. I know everybody's going to go to DJ Moore. I'm sure that's a place to live. But then I guess, I'm kind of like, that's kind of it for the mid tier. I mean, you can make cases and talk about Pittman. Yes. You can talk about Adam Thielen. Sure. Right. But when Addison at 57, well, I'll stay above 6K.
I was gonna say, I don't know how you ignore, and you're not ignoring Adam Thielen, but I mean,
no, I'm not ignoring him. But again, like he is who he is right now, and $5,900 is a great price for him. He's a target monster. Bryce Young keeps hitting him on the regular, and that's great. I don't know if
touchdowns in 3 or 4 weeks too. I mean, I don't know. He is blowing my mind. I did not think Adam Thielen had this left in him.
Well, because I mean, listen, you take a guy who, was a star in Minnesota and he's on the decline overall because he's not as fast as he used to be, and he doesn't get the separation as well as he used to do it. But when you put him in there and your other options are Terrace Marshall Jr., Jonathan Mingo, and DJ Chark, well, I mean, cream rises to the top. And Thielen's gonna, get that, that way. You know what bothers me was the comments that Frank Reich and the guys are gonna simplify the offense a little bit more for Bryce Young. Like, yeah. I'm sorry, if you made a trade to get that first pick and you knew that you were taking Bryce Young, would you not have done your due diligence to make sure that he could run the offensive scheme the way you want it to run?
Have you seen the reports coming out now after that? There was some team reporters kind of coming out here and saying that this selection was the owner's pick. It was not the coach's pick. That Frank Reich wanted CJ Stroud to be his first overall pick, and the owner wanted Bryce Young, and that is the selection that was made. So,
well, there you go.
The meddling in the decision, because he came out and said, some owners, don't like to sit back, and some owners like to be involved. And we have an owner that likes to be involved in these decisions. Like, he came out and literally just said, this was an ownership decision. This is not the quarterback we wanted. We will rally around Bryce Young. We will develop with Bryce Young, and we'll be in position to put him in a position to be successful. That's why those things started coming out. Well, we're going to go get him a true number one wide receiver. So you could see Sutton or Judy in Carolina in 2 weeks because the owner's like, well, I just traded away our future for this kid, and he wasn't what the coaches wanted. He's what I wanted, and now I got to make it work. But simplifying the offense should mean good things for Thielen. He's already running short routes, right? Just keep peppering him in down the middle. So
I think Thielen is a rock solid play. Yeah. He's a good cash game wide receiver. He's a good cash game wide receiver. I don't necessarily know how high his ceiling is, though. If you're trying to bink a mega entry, multi-entry GPP.
Sure. What DraftKings Sportsbook, here's something interesting for you, because obviously there's a big price difference here between Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk. Has them for the exact same yardage this week. So if you had to pick a Jacksonville wide receiver with Zay Jones on the sideline, would you rather pay the money for Calvin Ridley at $6,700 or Christian Kirk at $5,400 with the exact same receiving yard prop?
Yeah, no, I'd rather pay down for Christian Kirk. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. If we're talking that range, that $5,400 range, if we're talking in the 50s, I think there are a couple of other names that obviously commands some attention. Addison at 57.
Yep.
Lockett at 57. I think those guys warrant attention, not to mention Jacoby Myers at 5,800. That dude's been a target machine as well. And I think that's definitely worth a look.
Yeah, 100%. Again, matchup for him this week against the Patriots. I'm a big fan of what could go on in that spot. Tutu Atwell did score. 2 catches, 5 targets, 9 yards and touchdown. Unlikely to continue to see the value. So while he was good, just kind of throwing his name out there to say that probably not where we want to be looking anymore at this point. You have Osborne at $4,400. I do think that potentially Kendrick Bourne is a GPP dart. Maybe he's a dartboard play this week, Howard. You look at the New England offense, Juju Smith-Schuster and Demario Douglas are not going to be active for this week. They haven't been practicing. They're both in concussion protocol. Supposedly, according to Bill O'Brien, the coaching staff had a closed doors, meeting where they've reevaluated their processes and they're going to turn a new leaf and blah, 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 blah. Kendrick Bourne has always been Mac Jones' favorite wide receiver. And for one reason or another, Belichick just does not put him on the field. Out of necessity this week, I think Kendrick Bourne's going to have to play. And it wouldn't shock me if the Kendrick Bourne we saw the first 2 weeks when he was a target monster for this offense breaks out against Las Vegas. So if you want a dartboard play, when people are going to be playing Bourne or Boyd, Osborne, Boyd, or Downs here, I think that you could see Kendrick Bourne as well as a guy that could sneakily make some noise.
Sure. I think that's, if you want to kind of differentiate yourself from the rest of the herd, because I do think a lot of people will be on Osborne. You can use Osborne, Downs, Jacoby Myers, use those guys in a, in a cash game lineup because everybody's going to be over there. And then in a GPP, you flip it to Bourne,
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's some interest for me there. Again, they're going to be bringing Tyquan Thornton back. That's just a downfield guy. Devontae Parker's not doing anything. I think we're going to see Kendrick.
Nobody on the Patriots is doing anything. You can just sum it up with the fact and accept this, John. John, accept this. The Patriots suck balls.
Yeah,
they are a terrible team. They are an organization in complete disarray right now. Bob Kraft is at odds now, wondering if he's if he needs to take away either Bill Belichick's GM powers, or if he needs to take away his coaching powers and GM powers altogether. But the bottom line is your team is disgusting right now, and Kendrick Bourne is probably the only dart throw worth even mentioning. The fact that you even brought up Tyquan Thornton's name in this, the fact that you even mentioned Tyquan Thornton is a disgrace.
The mention of Tyquan Thornton is only to highlight Bourne.
Are you wearing a Patriots shirt right now?
I am. All right, I have no other wide receivers though. I don't. Downs, obviously, we know the last time that Gardner Minshew started, Downs had 8 catches on 12 targets against Baltimore. He's coming off of a 6 for 6 against Tennessee. Gets Jacksonville here. Now that said, Alec Pierce is still playing 100% of the offensive snaps. And Alec Pierce had 7 targets in that game when Gardner Minshew started against Baltimore. I think we need to also just reevaluate this offensive passing attack with a prototypical quarterback in Gardner Minshew versus Anthony Richardson when it comes to this spot this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Alec Pierce does a great job blocking downfield.
He's a great run blocker.
He's a great run blocker.
But he did have 7 targets against Baltimore. So
sure.
Just mention it. All right, any other wide receivers you want to talk about here, Howard?
I don't think so. I don't think so. There's nobody. I haven't found anybody yet in like the $300 to $3,400 range who I really like. I mean, you could just be like, oh yeah, throw a dart at Jameson Williams for $3,600. But even that's probably kind of wasting your money. I'd rather throw the dart at Jackson Smith-Njigba at $3,600 than Jameson Williams.
Okay, Mingo's there at 35.
Go ahead. You can have Mingo. You can have Mingo, who's fighting for snaps with Terrace Marshall
Jr.
While DJ Chark is playing 95% of the snaps.
He's not fighting for snaps. Last week with Mingo, Chark, and Marshall all healthy, Marshall played 0 snaps. 0. It was Mingo, it was Marshall, and it was Adam Thielen, the only 3 wide receivers that stepped on the field. And Laviska Shenault, but he carried the ball more than he got targeted. So Terrace Marshall is your man, odd man out when everybody is healthy there. So surprisingly, because again, the man had 18 targets in 2 weeks prior and then didn't get on the field for a snap.
Yeah, what do you do with those 18 targets?
Marshall had 9 of 10 and 5 of 8. I mean, not terrible. He just didn't play last week. Mingo's over him on the depth chart. Now that Mingo's back and Chark is back. So again, you want to get dirty and nasty and
no, I don't.
All right, fine. You're less in on the Panthers offense anyway, so which for good reason.
Let's talk about Van Jefferson now that he's with Atlanta now. Maybe that's
I'd rather not. All right, tight ends here. A lot of people are playing Hawkinson because there's no Jefferson and it's Chicago. Laporta did practice today, so Laporta's back in our player pool.
Was it a full practice or a limited?
I believe it was full.
I'd like to know, because you don't show up late on the injury report with a calf issue and just immediately, turn me around here.
All right, let me look for it here. I thought I saw the update that Sam Laporta did practice.
Because I love Laporta. I'm you know me, man. I am 100% in on Sammy Laporta. I'm just so upset by seeing him pop up on the injury report here. Return to practice. He'll likely he returned to practice. He'll likely be a limited participant one day after being added to the injury report.
Okay.
So we'll have to see.
He had no wrap on his calf and was moving well, according to Gina Trotman, who covers the Lions.
You know what? You get me Tim Twentyman on the phone. That's the guy who I want to talk to.
All righty. Well, anyways, Hawkins and Laporta are your top guys here. Actually, we have Iowa U here, the top 3 guys. Hawkinson, Laporta, and Kittle. All Iowa Hawkeyes here is your top 3 tight ends on the board for price wise. I'm playing Logan Thomas though, so I'm not playing any.
Let me scroll all the way down to $3,500.
Yeah, I've been telling people this all week. Like, don't sure if you want to, but why would you play anybody else? Man had 11 targets last week. The Atlanta's one of the worst teams against opposing tight ends. He's a target monster and an Eric Bieniemy offense here. I am just gonna keep playing Logan Thomas. He's mispriced. He should be $4,500, not $3,500.
Oh, dude, you live too close to DraftKings headquarters, buddy. Don't speak so loudly.
It's true. If they paid better, I would have been working for them, but they didn't, so they don't.
Hey, thanks.
Well, this was back when I had multiple jobs here, Howard. It was, we were doing Fantasy Alarm and the other jobs.
Terrible. Anyway. Terrible putting that out there. All right, tight ends. Yes, Hawkinson. I'm all the way in on paying down. I'll pay down to Zach Ertz. I have no problem using him against the Rams. He's a target machine right now. I think he's 3rd on the target list among tight ends. I think your dart throws are found in Tyler Conklin and Cade Otton.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not really interested in either one of those. Irv Smith, I just added him to the DFS watch list because of how bad Seattle is. But Irv Smith, he's got the mobility of a refrigerator. But if you want your one catch for 8 yards and a touchdown, that's Irv's your guy. But Logan Thomas and Zach Ertz right there is where I'm basically living for this entire slate.
Okay, I'm with you. I'm not really doing much else. Would you chase Kyle Pitts or Jonnu Smith here? Guess not. All right. Listen, we talked this same time last week. I said, "Hey, Jonnu Smith," and you're like, "Nah." I mean, the numbers are the numbers, man. He's just out there running routes and catching footballs. So
what did Jonnu do last week?
6 for 60.
Really? There you go. 12 points.
Yep. He's not $2,900 anymore though. He's 34. So.
Oh yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah, Pitts is 35.
That's
Pitts coming up from a monster game, 7 for 87.
One red zone look.
Well, yeah, that's going to happen with that offense. Yeah, Desmond Ridder running in touchdowns. All right, defense here. Let's close up the show, and then we'll build a lineup. 49ers are 4K and the lowest game total on the board against PJ Walker. I mean, that's just find a way to play the 49ers, I think.
Yes.
Right? Like
I love that the Raiders are 3,900. I'm not as bad as this New England defense is. I can't put any love into the Raiders D.
No, I'm with you there. I haven't played the Raiders at 39. I have actually built a lot of lineups again with the Saints, just going back to the Saints at $3,300. Listen, I understand that CJ Stroud is yet to throw an interception, but according to Football Reference, he also has the most bad throws percentage in football. So, maybe eventually those turn into turnovers. We know that defensive line can get after the quarterback. We know Stroud takes a lot of sacks. So I know it's on the road again, but I do have interest here in the Saints.
Yeah, I don't mind the Saints. God, what was I looking at? Oh, I was looking at the Bucks all the way down there at the bottom. Just if you're talking about Jared Goff's numbers on the road versus at home, if I was looking for like a super pay down, but there's really not a lot of good defenses there at the bottom of the barrel that you would trust. Maybe the Texans actually against the Saints if you're worried about Derek Carr's shoulder still.
He looked pretty good last week against the Patriots.
Everybody looks good against
the football downfield, though. He's throwing the football downfield.
I look good against
I like the Buccaneers call because they're home off of a bye. So you give me a home off bye situation. Had a couple of weeks to prepare for this Lions team. And you mentioned the Goff home road numbers. Those are pretty legit. So
what about the Jags against the Colts and Gardner Minshew?
Maybe, but their defense hasn't really done much for me.
No, it has not. It has not.
I mean, they had a good game against Atlanta, but
I'm not trying to convince you. I was just asking.
Yeah, I mean, if they brought back Saxonville, I'd have some more interest, but they just don't have the playmakers anymore in that defense. So
no, they don't.
All right, Howard, let's close it out here. Tell me your lineup this week. What do we got?
Wow, look at you, just relying on me. All right, go ahead.
Well, normally you have you got the lineup built.
Go put Joe Burrow in if you want. Go put Joe Burrow in there.
Oh, you want Burrow over Stafford? Crazy. All right, Burrow's in.
Right. I mean, you could go with Stafford here. I don't mind if you want to go with Stafford, but I prefer Burrow here just for the time being. Right.
Okay, that's fine.
Not much of a differential there. Put Kenneth Walker and Raheem Mostert as your two running backs.
All right.
Now throw Jamar Chase in there.
Okay.
Scroll down to $5,800 and get yourself a little Jacoby Myers.
Alrighty.
Then scroll down a scotch to 4,400 and get yourself a little KJ Osborne.
Ooh, you went Osborne. I thought you were going Downs. Osborne's in.
All right.
Tight end, Thomas.
Your tight end is Logan Thomas, of course.
No shocker. Okay.
All right. Your defense, Johnny, is the San Francisco 49ers. Pay up, baby. Pay up.
46 for a flex, Howard.
Oh, I don't know, John. What do you think? Go look at your flex options here. Who do you think I've got in my lineup?
46 for a flex. I don't know. Is it more playing Boyd or Downs rather?
Yeah, there you go at 4,100. We leave 500 on the table here, but this to me, John, is a tasty cake cash lineup. You're going to see some strong ownership numbers there. But what's most important is that you've got flexibility here. Like you could turn this into a nice little GPP lineup here. And like all of a sudden you go with Lockett instead of Myers. You go with Mixon instead of Walker. Like you've got really solid playable parts to move up and down with here while maintaining like certain guys like Logan Thomas. Jamar Chase, the 49ers defense, you could there's a lot to move around. You could go from Burrow and Chase to Stafford and Kupp here in this lineup if you wanted to.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Just playing around some pivots here, see what we got floating around the board.
Yeah.
We did Downs there.
Look at that. Kupp immediately fits right there. Look at that at 9,000.
Madison. Could double tight end with Laporta.
Not until I hear about that calf issue, dude.
That's fine. So a couple of different lineup options for everybody here this week. Again, we have big week 6 upon us. You can find Sunday morning. You got myself and Britt Flynn, 9 to 10. You have Bender and Coop from 10 to 11 over Sirius XM. And you come back. Myself and Andrew Cooper from 11 to 12, getting you all ready for NFL inactives, getting ready for all the DFS slates and seasonal questions that you all have. I'd be remiss to mention before we get out of here the awesome deal we got going on right now, Howard. Go to fanstorm.com/win. Use promo code LOCK. You can get the annual subscription package for what amounts to less than $16 a month, Howard. You get everything that we put on site for a year, all the way through week 6 of next season for less than $16 a month.
It's crazy, right?
Your dog's agreeing.
My dog's going nuts. My Tweezer just heard you say that, and she was like, "Where's my subscription?"
Exactly. wondering how to take a part of it. So scan the QR code here on the screen. Go to fanstorm.com/win. Use promo code LOCK on the annual subscription package. Less than $16 a month for the year. Access to everything we do on site. Can't beat it.
Can't beat it.
Can't beat it. Any final words here, Howard?
No. Kick some ass, baby. I think we've got a really good base for this week. Like I just showed you in this lineup, you've got a number of different ways that you can pivot off of it and using still the plays that we are most bullish on. So I think this is going to be a fun week, baby.
I would agree with you. I do think it's going to be a fun week. Everybody get us in Discord, find us on Twitter, and we'll catch you all later.